And here we have switched out the Hearthstone and the CSGO analyst, and we have now with us Wijk. You are here also to commentate some Starcraft 2.
Indeed, I am. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, and I don't think you're not just going to be commentating it. I believe the laptop's here for you to also observe it, and basically everything's done here?
Yeah, we're going to be multitasking a bit today,
yeah.
So it's going to be a full production here on the desk.
Yeah, so in case you're wondering if he's on his laptop, that's why he's the admin for this as well. Multitasking at its finest. So we have 4 competitors here for StarCraft 2. They come from all the Nordic countries, obviously Nordic Championships. That's what will happen. So talk to me about how these players came to be the champions of their country.
Well, so basically, all of the other Nordic countries now, they've sort of had sort of similar qualifying events that sort of take on the form of what esport SM qualifiers have been.
Yeah.
And then there's been one player crowned the champion, and then they've been sent their way over here to compete here now for the Nordic Championships. It's been quite straightforward, honestly, because it doesn't seed into any other sort of event or like WCS or whatever.
Yeah.
So it's sort of like a fresh start, if I may say that.
Yeah, that's fair enough. Any surprises here in the 4 that we have? And the 4 that we have are, by the way, Snute and Lillekanin. Those will be up first, and then it will be Serral and Zanster up second.
Yeah, I don't really think there's going to be any big surprises, or there weren't any big surprises rather. Having almost every single player being top ranked in the country. The only one not being that is Zanster, surprisingly enough. But then again, he's been. He did win esport SM. He's been doing that for 3 years straight now, and to be honest, he's still what I would consider the strongest Swedish player, if not on paper, still in the game. So no big surprises, I think, in who's turned up so far.
Okay, and any expectations? I mean, in terms of players that are here, let's first talk about Snute, because I think he's the most known of the 4 players here.
Yeah, most certainly. I mean, Snute is by far considered one of the best players of all time. I mean, not only looking at the foreign scene, I think he's definitely been considered within the top 10 or top 15 rankings of the world at times. This guy has been able to go toe-to-toe with some of the very best Koreans in the world, and we've had like some extremely good showings. That just to go back to one event that sort of stuck with me was his games in IEM versus Polt in the 4-2 finals, for instance. Like getting to that level of play is extremely rare, and especially within the foreign community, it's because the practice regimen is so different. So Snute right now, I mean, just right off the bat, so I'm going to be very frank about it. I think that he is one of the strongest players that you could ever get to an event like this, like within Europe.
Definitely, and he's a perfectionist. He has this almost sickening work ethic. This is probably the most hardworking player I've ever seen in StarCraft 2. He's absolutely insane, and it's going to be an uphill battle for everyone else who wants to face him. But then again, we've seen some pretty interesting results. Between, for instance, Serral, who's playing later, and Snute. So it's not like he's definitely going to take it, and I think we have a lot of space still for some upsets here. But he's definitely our favorite today.
Okay, and that is our Norwegian champion, and in the first series he's going to go up against the Danish champion, Lillekanin, and I believe that he has been around for a very long time as well.
Oh yes, Alex actually has a really good story about that guy.
So the thing is, Lillekanin, he started playing like these online cups. We have these weekly online cups in StarCraft 2 that goes on. He's been playing those since October 2010. And he's actually one of the first players I ever casted. When you get into your bedroom, you start casting. Those online cups. Yeah. And I probably started casting him like on the like cup number 100 something. And now we're up to like 500 or so. It's like we've been casting this guy forever, and in so many games. And it's been a treat, to see him actually come all the way here and actually represent Denmark as the strongest player there. Does
that mean that you're also rooting for him because you have some kind of emotional attachment already to him from like years ago?
To be honest, I think I'm rooting for everyone because everyone has. I'm gonna stay non-biased.
Oh, okay.
I love every player for different reasons, So.
I mean, that's a diplomatic answer to give, really. What can I expect?
Yeah.
Now, that is our Danish champion, and later on we're going to see our Finnish champion, Serral. So where does he come from? Where does he fit in?
Well, Finland.
Okay.
Sorry. But yeah, so Serral has a really interesting story as well because, and one of the reasons I really want him to do well is because he's definitely the youngest player here. He's 18 years old.
Okay.
And he was picked in really early into the team My Insanity, which had a really broad array of talent. You had some really good Koreans, etc. And I've been talking a lot to their player manager, Penguin. And basically, this guy has had some incredible potential. He's been just completely getting better and better. And something that's really rare in StarCraft is that this guy has a constant curve. If you look at his rating, he's constantly getting better.
That's scary.
He never drops down. And that's something that's really scary, because this guy, in 2-3 years, could be better than anyone here, probably.
That is something to someone to keep an eye on for sure. Then, and then of course the Swedish pride, Zanster.
Yeah, that's my boy Anton. We actually live really closely to each other, so
Okay.
like, I try to hang out sometimes.
Biased.
I mean, unlike Alex, I'm not very diplomatic about what I say.
Yeah.
But yeah, so Anton, I mean, he's won eSport SM 3 years in a row.
Yeah.
And I want to go back to the point that we brought up just a little earlier here about, because Alex thinks he's the best player in Sweden right now, whereas I would sort of disagree a little bit. I think it's between Sandster and Sort of. These guys have, as well, they've met each other in eSport SM in finals 3 times already, and Sandster has trumped him in that best of 5 or best of 7 every single time. And now in their last engagement at DreamHack Summer, that was a 3-0.
Wow.
And Sandster showed like some incredible form. And now most recently played in Home Story Cup, but he didn't make it through the first group stage because he was in a really tough group, Alex.
Oh, yeah.
There was a Harstem, Rogue,
Rogue, and Alive.
Yeah.
Probably the most difficult group you can define.
Yeah, that was like the group of death, basically. But
yeah.
Bit unlucky.
Yeah, definitely. But now for this one, like he's going to go up against Sarah, and like Alex explained, this guy has just been growing and growing in talent, and he is looking really, really good, like a very consistent player. So I think that Zanster, right now, I'm not entirely certain about his form, but I know that when he peaks, it's extreme. And if he can reach that form today, I think he can do very, very well, and we potentially might even see him go to the finals all the way. But ZVZ is a really tough matchup.
Yeah, because we have ZVZ and a ZVT matchup as our first semifinals. I mean, we got 3 Zerg players at this event, no Protoss, just 1 Terran. Overall, what kind of impact do you think that will have on the games?
Well, to start things off, Zerg versus Terran, I think, it's honestly going to come down a lot to if Lillekanin actually manages to beat Snute, because then we'll have a display of the Terran builds that he's bringing out on this map pool versus Snute, who is considered to be the best Zerg here right now. And that will give both Cyril and Zanster some preparation, some time, because they have the opportunity to watch the games, and then that way they can study how Lillekanin is playing, or because if Snute just beats Lillekanin, it doesn't really matter to the other 2 guys because they're not going to be playing any Terrans in this tournament.
Yeah, true.
Whereas on the other side, Snute makes it through, and then he has the opportunity to watch Cyril and Sans play. So, the dynamic of who gets the advantage in terms of information and advantage in read of the game is going to be absolutely massive, I think, here, because DBZ is that sort of matchup. If you can go into that, because you're better at it than I am at.
Yeah, well, we do have a new patch that just was released.
True.
Yeah.
And I've been talking about with the players, and it seems like no one's played the new patch, so it's going to be really interesting. Just a handful of games, perhaps, per player. But people keep telling me, although we have the Hydrolisk, for instance, has gotten really improved, they still say that the ZVZ won't change that much, probably. So we might just see pretty standard play in the second series, and if it comes to the finals as well, as a ZVZ, it might just be very standard. Now, the ZVT, though, has been radically different in terms of every mech unit, everything. And when we spoke to Lillekanin earlier, I mean, I was thinking he's going to be nervous coming in here against Snute, the first player.
Yeah.
I'm pretty devastated about that. But to be honest, he was pretty confident, it looked like. So it's going to be interesting.
That's very promising.
Yeah.
I like that. I believe we are ready to start our first match. So it will be a ZVT. It will be Lillekanin versus Snute. And I'm going to leave it to these 2 gentlemen who will talk you through it. So, gentlemen, enjoy.
Thank you very much.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the first game is about to begin very shortly here. We are going to start things off on New Gettysburg for this Terran versus Zerg, Snute versus Lillekanin. And here we have our first player, the blue Zerg, spawning in the bottom right, representing Team Liquid.
Seems like we have some issue in the game. You know what? We're going to hold that for a second.
Yeah.
We're going to have an admin look up what's going on. But let's talk a bit about what we're going to have here. Because I was...
Can I just get one thing out of my system, Alex, before we carry on?
Sure thing.
When you're doing the introductions, especially for a game like Starcraft, and something sort of just, attacks you from the side, and it completely throws you off balance, I'm like a house of cards when it comes to that. So I'm gonna redo that one later. But yeah, dude. We want to talk about the maps a little bit here, like the vetoes and the choices here, because for this first series, the veto for Snute was Dasan Station, And then Lillekanin decided to remove King Sejong Station. And because, as you were saying, we have a new patch which has changed things dramatically. And the biggest thing, of course, for this matchup specifically, I would say, is the siege tank. You can no longer pick it up in the medevac when it's engaged in siege mode, and this is such a big change. They've also increased damage now, so it does 70 damage flat to armored units. So it means this will melt Ultralisks, it's going to tear through roaches. It's basically the Brood War siege tank back in action.
Yeah, kind of. Now, one of the things we have to remember, though, is that although the siege tank is vastly stronger than before, then again, you can't pick it up.
Less mobile.
That, exactly. And that mobility is what Legacy of the Void has been so well known for in terms of TVZ and every turn matchup almost.
Yeah.
And we also have to remember, we've had a huge change in Cyclone. I don't want to say straight up nerf, but everyone will probably agree saying that, since you can't really kill our units in time now. Especially if you see someone who's doing the kind of dark style drop a lord thing with banelings and lings, even in TVZ, it's going to be very difficult to deal with that in time. But now we do have some other differences that look pretty minor in the patch notes, but actually like Banshee speed, not requiring your fusion core, for instance, and such things can make a difference if you want to go outside the box.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Because I'm really glad you bring that up, because we have a lot of interesting players. And I would actually want to put Lillekanin in within that he's one of these guys that isn't afraid to bring some innovation to the table. You know, talking to him, he said, I'm feeling very confident, and because there is a new patch, I know that, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. I don't have experience on this patch, but so you too, Snute, lack experience. And that is something that I think sort of has dictated, especially TVZ, for a very long time in the shift of the metagame and how it's been developed, is that the Zergs struggle versus Protoss, they struggle versus Terran, because the metagame is always extremely aggressive from their side. But then the Zerg figure out, like, okay, I know how to defend this now. Okay, I know when I need to make units, I know when I can drone. But because in this new patch, that dynamic is gone.
Well, yeah, partly. We're going to see, though, because the players are also expecting, you know, big change here. But to be honest, I gotta say, the players didn't seem like the TVZ department is going to be vastly different.
No, I mean, that's the one unchanged, but I'm talking specifically about like TVZ.
Exactly, and even TVZ, I'm going to say, we have seen quite a few games being determined more with the early bio. You know, we have the early medevac drops with the bio units, etc. So we're going to see if it's still going to be the case here, because what we've been seeing lately a lot is, you know, Zergs have started using for some time now the delayed third and using the earlier overload speed to get the early scout to know what's going on. Now, for instance, you can't really go Cyclones against that as easily. We might still see the same, you know, double medevac drop, etc. But I'm not sure if it's going to be as strong now, because you can't rely on the same, you know, the siege tank dropping later. You can't rely on the sudden position of just getting in there and dropping all the siege tank in one place.
No, but I still think that that's a staple build. Like that one is not going to change.
Yeah, exactly.
It's way too good. Like, you know, you look at Beyond and he's just like.
We all know it's way too good.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen Beyond guys. But so, you know, to just continuously harp on this, because I think it's such a big talking point, Alex. With this significant change, I still think that, you know, how, like, especially the mid-game, how that is going to develop now because of the lack of the siege tanks. Like, are we going to see them at all? Are we going to see them work the same way as we saw them, like, fill the same function in Brood War, where you start leapfrogging slowly? Is mech going to become a thing again? Because now the Cyclone, we can talk about that too.
Sure.
Because, you know, that's been changed. It used to do 400 damage over 14 seconds to an air unit, or to whatever unit.
Now it's 160.
Yeah, exactly, over the same amount of time. So the DPS is significantly lower, but you can make 2 at a time out of reactors. Boys in the crowd, shout out to you.
Cheering for Denmark, it seems here. Not a lot of Norwegian. Sorry, Norwegian fans.
What are you doing, man?
Yeah, I was looking through the lights here. Sorry, we got a lot of Norwegian fans over here.
You were being so diplomatic, and now all of a sudden you're just
now
like,
just turn the crowd against me.
Yeah, straight by.
Oh man, not a good start.
But yeah, anyway, so the Cyclone also, you know, changed.
Yeah.
But so now the ground attack DPS has been raised to like 29. It's ridiculous, and it deals additional damage to armored units. Range 4 down from range 6 or 5. And then you get an upgrade, so you can get +2, so you get up to 6 range. So those guys, they will shred stalkers, they shred roaches, like anything that's armored will die so quickly. And you can make 2 of them right now out of reactors. You don't need to get the tech lab anymore to make them.
You can mass produce them right now.
You can mass cyclones.
Yeah.
And because to me, it's sort of, Artos has made a really interesting blog post about this one. I can't recall all of it in detail exactly, but there were a lot of complaints now, so far, just, I mean, only after a couple of days after the patch launch, where people are like, you know, the Cyclone is sort of like a a dumbed-down Warhound kind of unit, because they've buffed the HP, but it just goes in and it just does damage. Like, it really doesn't have any sort of niche function. And Terran already is that sort of race, especially if you play mech. Like, all of your units are just like...
Yeah, and it's going to be very interesting. As we've been saying, a lot of players here haven't been able to really test out the patch to its full potential. And what that kind of gives you are these almost zero-day threats, you know? Like, you can do builds that are kind of new, that are out of the box, and especially someone like Lillekanin, who plays a lot of online cups. He can do these things because he's played against these guys you're going to be facing on the ladder. You can, play against, you play against a lot of different styles. You learn a lot of different styles. Now, Snute, of course, is a veteran in this field as well. But I don't know, I think Lillekanin does get a slight advantage compared to if we played a few days before the patch.
Yeah, no, I agree. Because if we fall back to how things were before, then I think it would have been very, very different. It would have been, we would have seen Snute obviously dictate the pace of the game. Whereas it would have probably been Lillekanin trying to hop along, keep up in pace.
Hop along.
Yeah.
Funny.
But now, that's going to be very different, obviously. So I think that the very first game, it is New Gettysburg here, is going to be very important to dictate how quickly things are going to progress for the rest of this series. Because if we see like a high progressive opening already here, for instance, from the Terran, then that can really start setting the tone for how the rest of the series might play out. Because map 1, Gettysburg, map 2 is going to be Frost. And there, again, with the spawning positions, are going to be very detrimental to the outcome. Then we have Apotheosis, which is notoriously a very good Zerg map.
Yeah.
And then Frozen Temple, and the last one, we go to the ace map, Galactic Process. We are playing in the old map pool, by the way, guys, so no confusion there. We aren't going to see Daybreak just yet. Don't worry.
Yeah, something I want to mention as well. I like the fact that Snute did decide to veto Dasan. That's a big veto, because if Snute left that out and let Lillekanin play on Dasan, that would have been a big statement, because it's such a specific map. You have to be really specialized to be able to play on Dasan to your proper strength. And it's something that every standard player, or everyone who plays any kind of standard style, they place on every single map, or most of the maps, you don't want to play Dasan.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because you have Starcraft, right, guys, with the ladder maps, you practice those, you play those, and then you have Dasan Station. Like, you specifically have your own chapter of like 400 pages for how to play Dasan Station. Yeah. So it's such a weird map, and one of the builds there that you would see quite often would be, you go into just like 2-Rax Reaper. It was very powerful. You follow that up into like tank. Some players really like going into Banshees, which is starting to make a bit of a comeback in the matchup. Yeah. But now with the change there, that would have been really big. So, I think it makes a lot of sense to veto that one, because, now with the firepower, the raw firepower, the siege strength being doubled effectively, then, if they get up in a good position, as on a map like Dasan, where it is really easy to get up, then, yeah, you're going to be in a lot of trouble as Zerg. But to talk about New Gettysburg, Alex, for this map, you have the bridge, like very focal entry point for action into the game, and then otherwise you have the long way around with the rocks and the Silnaga Tower. But for this one, with the airspace, quick scout obviously here is going to be coming in for Snute. And then from there, see what does he do with the information that he's going to be processing. And all these other things, like how does Lillekanin want to take initiative into this one? Because I think if you just allow Snute to comfortably go all the way up into the macro game, into mid-game, 3 bases, get that saturation going without any sort of pressure, then, regardless, you can be Beyond and you're going to be in trouble. Yeah, well, Beyond is always going to find a way. But you're kind of right here. And I also want to bring up, by the way, that while they're trying to fix some stuff, you can see the admins here in the background. A huge shout out to them, of course, working really hard here. That Snute and Lillekanin, of course, they haven't met each other on any big premier events recently, but they did actually meet in one of these online cups we've been talking about. Didn't go all too well for Lillekanin, though, went 2-0 right away for Snute. And also something to mention here is recently, the current form is that you see Lillekanin around 53% or so against Zerg, if I remember correctly, while you see someone like Snute, I mean, he's 63%. Like, he's winning 2 out of 3 games against the players he plays against. And we talk about the top tier players in the world that he's playing this well against. And one of the reasons why it's not higher is because of the home story cup that we just had, of course. Yeah. But guys, before game 1 is going to have the chance to start. We're going to have a quick break to sort out any issues here. So don't go anywhere, because we'll be right back with you after just a couple of minutes, guys. So make sure that you refill your glasses with your choice of beverage and get your snacks going, because we are starting the day with StarCraft, guys. You don't want to miss this for anything in the world. We'll be right back with you.